Hey everybody, it is another day and it is day 36, in fact, of spiritual health care. Welcome to all of you. I can't believe it's day 36. It's just crazy. We've been doing this for 36 days. It is good to see everybody this morning, and I hope everybody had a really good evening. The weather is beautiful outside right now here. I don't know what it is for you guys, but it's quite nice here today on this lovely, is it Saturday? I think it's Saturday. Nobody knows anymore. Nobody knows what day it is. I am so glad to be here this morning. We've got some cool topics to talk about. We're going to be chatting about animals today, as well as people reporting haunted objects and stuff like that. So this is going to be super cool. Good morning, Jan. Good morning, Kaz. Good morning, Patricia. Hey everybody logging in, it's nice to see you. As I say, we've got some cool topics today. I'm excited to get into them and to hear what you guys have to say too. I love it. I love the watching the chat. I don't get all the questions as they're coming up, but I get some of them. And I love watching your discussion. It's so much fun. Good morning, Jason. And you've got sun. That's awesome. Yeah, it's sunny here too. It's quite nice here right now. We're going to be like 20 Celsius or something like that today, which is an improvement from where we've been. So that's pretty good. So good morning to everybody. It is a lovely day. As I say, day 36. We're going to be chatting about animals in parapsychology and psi research, which is really exciting because lots of people have animal stories and really cool experiences with animals, whether it be spirit animals or encounters with them or studies and stuff like that. So it's going to be great. Good morning, Trey. It's so awesome and so neat to see where you guys are all from. This is so cool. Of course, this is I'm sitting up here in Edmonton, Alberta, but so many people are logging in from all over the place. It's just the neatest thing. I love this technology. It's so cool. So we're going to be talking lots about that kind of thing today. And as I say, the haunted objects aspect of it is going to be pretty neat too. What the hell is the deal with that, right? So I'm going to give you guys my take on it anyway and explain what I've seen happen. There's lots to do. And I've got a neat to do for you guys as well today, which is really neat and fun. And an interesting process that I think is going to challenge you guys in some new ways. And because I know it definitely has for me over the years. So I hope it's going to help you guys as well. There's just been so much going on lately. I hope you guys are enjoying the new season of Paranormal 911. I keep hearing good things. People are writing in and saying that you guys are really enjoying the new season, which is great. We had a lot of fun in Toronto filming that. My co-stars and we ended up at a mansion called the Keg Mansion in Toronto, and it was really spectacular. It was an old governor's house, and thanks to a mutual friend of ours, he got us reservations there, and we all went and had dinner and experienced this historical mansion. It was a really, really cool adventure that night. So good morning, y'all. So good to see you. Good morning, Des. Good morning, Jay. It's so nice to see everybody every morning. This is so wonderful. I want to crack into this today by talking a little bit about animals and the paranormal and psi research, because there's so many people that have these amazing stories, and I've gotten a lot of questions over the last while of people asking about animals and their role in not only in our lives, but in the non-physical world. Like how exactly does that work? And I've had animals like my entire life, cats, dogs, mostly reptiles, because I love reptiles. I'm super allergic to fur. So like I have a limitation with dogs and cats. I was just like, I love them, but they make me sneeze and itchy eyes and all that stuff. So reptiles is really my thing, and and I've had everything over the years, but I've had these beautiful iguanas and beautiful little gecko named Mariah, and now of course I have Galen, my wonderful Galen. Hold on, you guys, I don't know if I've shown you guys Galen or not. Hold on. So there's Galen. There's Galen. That's Galen. So he is a ball python. He's a royal python. And he's amazing. He's going to be 16 in June here, and he loves classical music. So it's so funny. So for his birthday, check this out. For his birthday, yep, I got him classical music. I got him one of my favorites too. I love Bach. He's just amazing composer, brilliant composer. But Galen will sit and listen to classical music for hours and hours and hours, and it's the coolest thing. But animals are amazing that way. So let's chat about them. How does this all function into the world of the paranormal and animals? And I know you guys have had stories and whatnot about them, but in Psi research, people have looked at animal intuition in a number of different ways. One being the precognizance work of animals and earthquakes, so natural disasters and things like that. And probably one of the best examples of this was the Indian Ocean tsunami in 2004. It was in December, and it killed about 250,000 people. It was a horrific event. But what was interesting about it was that even though the people got hit pretty hardcore, the animal population was barely affected. And what they noticed was that there were reports of dogs and elephants and livestock and things like that all leaving about an hour before the tsunami hit. They all just left. They just took off. In Japan, and speaking of snakes and things like that, snakes are actually relied upon to predict earthquakes in a lot of situations, because they just know, and they'll let you know immediately that there's earthquakes coming. For years, they've been looking at things like animal homing abilities. It was about 2016, there was an incident in Wales where a dog had made a 12-day journey from its new home in England all the way, crossing highways, all sorts of things, to return to its old original home. And it's phenomenal to see all of this sort of come together and intuition kicking in. There was a study, or I guess an observation, that was made a number of years previous to that, of elephants who lost one of the conservation workers, one of their favorite people. And what was so interesting about this was that after this fellow died, and they were going to hold his funeral basically at the reserve or whatnot, and they had elephants that came from all over Africa, like all over the place. They traveled because they got word that this guy had passed away, and they all showed up to pay their respects to him. So it's really interesting, because you start to wonder, okay, how is this happening? How are they doing this? I know I've definitely had a number of incidents with Galen, my ball python, where I've gone to do something or whatnot, and he seems to have predicted what I'm about to do, whether it be something with a terrarium or something like that, and it's very interesting. They seem to have this ability to clue in. The other thing that has been studied over the years for this has been disease detection, and this is becoming more and more of a thing, especially when we now are realizing that there are more animals other than dogs that can be service animals. So people there was one fellow I read recently it was on Facebook or something like that, and he had a service alligator. An alligator. It was great because they're really smart. They're super smart. So he had a service alligator, and there's been a number of people with service snakes and service all sorts of things. So needless to say, airlines and businesses and stuff are still catching up to that. They're still kind of they don't really get that. They're kind of out in left field a little bit, but it's really, really cool. So people with diabetes, animals detecting their low blood sugar before they tank into a diabetic coma and stuff like that. So it's really interesting. So they're beginning to wonder, are they relying on, for example, chemicals emitted because of the illness, right? Like dogs sniffing out cancer and stuff like that. Are they relying on the chemicals, or are they relying on something else? Are they tuning into something bigger than what we're understanding? So there's a back and forth about it right now. Some people are arguing that they're actually detecting magnetic disturbances. So they're detecting things like, just before an earthquake hits, of course, our magnetic fields go a little bit wonky, and things like that. So they're starting to wonder how much of this is intuition, how much of this is the animal tuning in, or how much of this is actually something to do with them tuning into something that we just are, we've kind of tuned ourselves out of. We've talked lots in spiritual healthcare here about the idea of the Global Consciousness and Global Consciousness Project, run by the Institute of Noetic Sciences. And you start to wonder a little bit if maybe, and I kind of lean to this opinion. I think all of the these occurrences have multiple factors layered into them. We know snakes can, for example, sense magnetic fields, stuff like this. I think they're definitely picking up on this stuff. But I think as well, animals are so tuned in and plugged in to who they really are. They're really able to get still and follow that internal guidance in a way that people kind of shut out to. We really do. We kind of tune that out. And we ignore these subtle signs and symptoms that I think animals are just really hypersensitive to. We look at a situation like a lion hunting a group of gazelle in the African field. And, the gazelle, before they even smell the lion, they're alerted. They click that something's watching them. And so often we just get so removed from that. So animals have this really interesting ability to tune into, to all sorts of, subtleties in our world that we don't. It was about in the 1930s, there was a very interesting case of a horse by the name of Hans. And a British horse trainer by the name of Henry Blake ended up carrying out a series of experiments for about 40 years, testing his hunch that bonded horses have this telepathic connection. And so in one experiment, he actually separated this bonded pair of horses so that they were out of sight, out of earshot of each other, they couldn't hear anything. And then fed one of them at kind of a weird time, like they just changed their feeding schedule. And in 21 of 24 of the trials, the other one became agitated and and wanted food. So he seemed to know that there was something going on with his buddy, that his buddy was being fed. He had no way of knowing this at all. I mean, he was, as I say, out of earshot, couldn't smell it, nothing. And yet he was getting irritated that his buddy was getting food and he wasn't. So it's very interesting. And in a total of about 119 experiments, 68% gave positive indication of that telepathic ability. So that's a really hard number to ignore at the end of the day. So we start to wonder, are animals actually perceiving and are tuned into a lot more than we're understanding? And I'm personally of the opinion that they are. I think they're tuning into something that, we all have access to. But oftentimes we kind of shut that down and shut that out. So it's really interesting. So there's been a number of experiments that have been like this, but they often are studying things like the reaction to impending danger of the owner, for instance, the reaction to the death of an owner, anticipation of the owner's return. Like, how many people have dogs, right? And then, somebody's at home and it's like, 5-10 minutes before the owner comes in the door and the dog seems to know, he goes to the door and he's just sitting there waiting, anticipating his, this owner. He knows that guy's going to come walking up the steps, even when it's not a regular occurrence, like a regular time. Say, for example, somebody's deployed in the military and whatnot, and the dog seems to know when that person's coming home. So it's so interesting that, we see this as such an anomaly, where I don't think it's an anomaly at all. I think it's something that we can all tune into and learn to do, if we can still ourselves enough and pay attention. Animals are so in the moment. They're so in the moment. They're so good at being able to just be present. And that's something that we're always trying to work on, right? We're always trying to keep ourselves from going, getting our brains like dragged back into past baggage, or projecting anxieties into the future and things like that. Animals have this beautiful ability to teach us to stay in the present moment. They really do. And they are some of the best teachers. Eckhart Tolle, lovely Eckhart Tolle, who wrote The Power of Now and A New Earth. He wrote an entire book about that, and he is very much a believer that the teachers of Zen are cats, and he's been promoting that for a very long time, that animals really are, we have this opportunity to learn from them, and we think about them as something that is lower than us or less than, when in fact they've got so many lessons down pat that we are still struggling with. So it's such an interesting paradigm to take a look at. And I highly recommend, so on the Psi Encyclopedia, I know I've recommended this website to you guys before, the Psi Encyclopedia, I'll post it on EntitySeeker as well later on today. There are tons of articles and things like that about animals and how they pertain to parapsychology and the paranormal and things like that. So I will post that today so you guys can take a look at it. There were so many studies done over the years. The Rhine Research Institute, the Rhine has tested a mare by the name of Lady Wonder, and she was able to spell out words with like letter blocks and stuff like that. And all of the words that she would spell out were things that people were thinking about. Yeah, like really crazy, right? Like pretty cool stuff. So, places like the Rhine have really delved into this. So that brings us to our next subject. And the question actually came in from Bernie a number of days ago. And I wanted to get to this because I thought it was so relevant for so many people. There's been a lot of questions about this. And I know a lot of museums talk about it also. And I gave you guys yesterday the link to, some of the museum tours and stuff like that. So haunted objects. Bernie wanted to know, dolls, family heirlooms, and paintings, fact or fiction, do these happen? Does this happen? Does this exist? Interesting idea and interesting subject. So what's the clash with information with things like haunted objects, and this is where things become very tricky, is that as soon as somebody labels something, regardless of what it is in their world, as soon as we put a label on something, we tend to live to the label, whether it be living it ourselves and we're the ones that receive the label, or we're living our state of expectations, and we're rising our state of expectations to believe in the label that we've given an object. So for example, to use us as an example of this, if you turn around very early on and tell a child that they're slow, right? And you tell them this over and over and over again. There's nothing wrong with them, but you turn around and say, no, you're kind of slow. What's interesting is that, you watch that kid go through school, and that's just where their bar becomes, right? That's their state of expectation. They're slow. They're going to live to that label. That's just what they do. And when we start to label other things like that also, whether it be a culture or whether it be, in a broader sense, a culture or an object or something like that as negative or evil or terrible or whatever that is, and start to paint it with that brush, our state of expectation then starts to rise to meet that. And what we know about the universe is that it's always going to deliver us evidence to our beliefs, right? So we have to be really careful about how we are framing objects and things like that, especially when somebody turns around and says, this is cursed, or this, this brought me bad luck, and stuff like that. Because automatically, not only does our brain start to frame it that way, but we start to end up attracting evidence to support that belief. So, for example, say you've got, some sort of object that's been passed down to you, and your state of expectation, you've been told it's bad luck, or you've been told it's cursed or haunted or whatever, and you get this object, somewhere in your brain, you end up starting to look for evidence that supports that belief. And we do this naturally just as people anyway. We start to want to confirm that bias. So when we get that thing and we have a piece of bad luck, or something happens to us, or we don't pay a bill, or somebody gets sick or something like that, our brain starts to want to form a pattern around what that is. So we want to start to form a story in our head and a narrative to give whatever has happened some purpose. And oftentimes we will link it back. If one of these objects or something like that is present, we start to link it back to whatever this is. So we have to remember that our point of attraction is never around an object. The object is not going to dictate our own vibrational state of being. It just won't. It can't. It doesn't. The object doesn't think. So our own state of being is really up to us. And that's why you could have somebody say, for example, have an object for years, and have really bad luck or whatever, and then they give it to somebody else who has a different state of expectation about it, or a different framework about how they're looking at it, and they never ever have an issue, right? Because we are always the ones in control of our point of attraction. It's not an object or something like that. It can't be. So that being said, are things, can things have paranormal occurrences happen around them? Totally. Absolutely. I mean, there's cases of that all the time. We look at a case, using, let's say, the case of Annabelle, for example. Probably a lot of you saw the part of the Conjuring series that was about Annabelle, and that was quite skewed, the way they told that story. But originally, the case of Annabelle had to do with a couple of nurses who had a Raggedy Ann doll, and the Raggedy Ann doll, they would come back to their dorm and whatnot, and after work, and they would find this doll in all sorts of positions and places and stuff like that. And when they finally threw it out, the doll came back in, all sorts of things. So as tools, sometimes with entities and stuff like that, they can be manipulated, they can be moved around, and negative entities can become very possessive over different things in different places. So that is an aspect of hauntings and things like that we have to be conscious of. But it does still come back to our own level and point of attraction. How are we managing this? And it's something to keep in mind as we kind of move forward, because I hear a lot of stories and things like that of, I got rid of this object, and say, for example, the activity that they were experiencing or the bad luck they were experiencing stopped. Well, of course it stopped, because your belief was that the object was the problem. So as soon as we start to live to that state of expectation, we have to be prepared for the results of that. So that's one of the reasons why I think framing things, understanding how we're viewing the world, what labels we're attaching to stuff is so important. Because we start to easily begin to attract evidence of whatever that is. And in a haunting situation, it's just one of many examples of things like haunted objects and stuff like that. And Patricia brings up a great point. You could argue that a haunted house is just a really big haunted object. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's spot on, because we tend to go into places like this with an expectation of whatever that looks like. And then, of course, we've got that emotional state wherever our state of being is, and we're going to pull a reflection of wherever we are from that, from that belief system. So it's something we have to be very careful of as we move along. So the process that I wanted to give you guys today is in relation to this. And because so many of our labels come from a very, very, very early age, very early. We start labeling things when we're very little, and usually our state of expectation about those labels have to do with what we were told, right? What we were told. What have you been told about these various different things? And we start to form our framework for the world based on a lot of these observations, and based on a lot of these ideas that our parents have held and our grandparents have held, and so on and so forth. And so when we start to look at, as a child, what we learned, it's interesting to go back and start to challenge some of those labels. So one of the things that I've done in the past, and I know other people have as well. I know my friend Patricia and I, we've been working on this kind of back and forth for a while too, which is going back and actually informing our child self about the new information, about the new label. Because sometimes the labels or the explanations or things like that our parents have given us, or our grandparents or the world or school or whatever, it's wrong. It's just wrong. And now that we're older and we've been able to gather new information, we can turn around and start to reassign stories and new labels and facts to what it is that we were when we were kids. And those beliefs might be something about you. That might be something about you that you learn from them that is just not, it's not true. So the idea is to go back. Tell your child self, pick an age, pick 10, pick 5, pick whatever it is. And go back and explain it out. Because there's something about being able to be your own best friend, be the adult that your child self maybe didn't have at the time, whether it be a teacher, whether it be, whatever it is. To turn around and explain it. Be the adult for them now, and see what happens. See what that interaction looks like, because it can get really, really interesting. And it's amazing how much healing can happen, especially when those labels and those explanations that you were given were a bad thing. So give it a try it out and see where you get with it, because it can be really, really cool, and it can reshape our filters of the world that we're going through right now. There's a lot of finger pointing right now to different cultures, different races, and things like that. And that's one of the challenges in our world right now, is to not be projecting that negative energy towards people or things or groups. That it's really easy to, either label with misinformation or something like that, and just sort of paint everything with a broad brush. And we can't be doing that. We have to have, some critical thinking skills in there, and challenge what we think we know. We really have to challenge that. It is just super important. So the other thing that I wanted to pass along to you guys today is an awesome reading from our book, Faith in the Valley by Miss Iyanla Van Zandt, because I think she is just so brilliant. She is so brilliant. And she will be also, if you guys are attending the Hay House You Can Heal Your Life Summit on the 30th, which is in 5 days. If you guys are going to be attending that, she is one of the speakers for You Can Heal Your Life, the summit, this on the 30th. So I highly recommend checking that out, because it's a plethora of amazing speakers. It's really cool. And she's amazing. She's really, really cool. So Chris is saying self-awareness is crucial. Had this conversation last night with a friend. It helps to structure and plant seeds of prosperity in my kid's life. Absolutely. And this brings up such a great point, because being able to plant those seeds early with kids, right? And be conscious, because our projection of the world, if you've got kids or you're looking after kids or whatever that relationship is, your projection of the world is going to influence them, whether you're telling them this or not, whether you're saying this to them, it doesn't matter. You are going to influence their perspective just based on the energy that you've got going on. So if you are covering a topic, for example, or you're refusing to talk about something or anything like that, they will know. That silence will speak volumes. So make sure you're planting very deliberate seeds with that, because it's very true. And Marge says her house is so bright and so peaceful now. That is awesome. That is awesome. And, if you've got a situation like this with an object, Marge brings up a really great point, to be able to find whatever it is that works for you to make that space more peaceful, right? And it's different for everybody. Whatever is going to make you feel good, that's where you need to go to, whether it be, some people like to use sage, some people use meditation, some people use, painting or changing the lighting in a room, putting up photographs. Everybody's got a different thing. So, find the thing that is working for you and start to reassign what that space or what that object means. And it's going to do amazing things. So yeah, I love that. I love that. Okay. So check this out, you guys. This is interesting. For some strange reason, being soft, kind, and gentle have become aversions. It is as if these adjectives impose notions of being weak, subservient, and less than others, particularly, we might believe, even less than men in the cases of women. Somehow we think that if we are soft, people will abuse us, ignore us, and walk over us with their boots on. I've even noticed how often women will frown or scowl when describing another woman as soft, too nice, or even prissy. These things we now believe will not carry us far down the road to success. Instead, we've put on a breastplate of toughness, taking up a shield of hardness, held out a sword of harshness, and put on a helmet of meanness. We are wearing the wrong armor. You can fly a lot higher wearing kindness because it doesn't weigh you down with the guilt of being hard. You can move ahead faster with gentleness because it doesn't impose the same burdens that meanness does. You can open more doors with soft, gentle strokes than you can with the swipes of a sword. And most important of all, you can sleep a lot better when you've acted from the core of your power rather than worrying about who is more powerful than you. And I love that. I love that. I love that. I love that. It's so true, right? It's just, again, it's how we're labeling the world, what that filter is looking like. Chris is asking, I have white sage. Are there others you would recommend? Really, it's anything. It really can be anything. People are looking for, something very specific and whatever, but it really doesn't matter. It's really, again, it's whatever you sign that belief to. If you believe that sage is going to do that thing for you, then do that. If you believe it's going to be, I don't know, like waving a white flag around the house, if that's what your belief is, that's going to fix, or make you feel better and put you in a better state of allowing, that will do it too. It really doesn't matter. It really does come down to your labels about that thing. It's not the item that is changing the surrounding. It's not. We like to think it is, but it isn't. It's really what the item is doing to our point of attraction and shifting our state of being into a new frequency so that you can receive different things. So it really doesn't matter. That's why there's so many cultures that have a billion different things to use, like incense. You get whether you're in a religion or whether you're talking about a cultural practice or anything like that. Everybody's got a different thing, and they all work. They all work. There's nothing specific. So yeah, pick whatever one feels best to you, and do that, and just do that. So to do today, I got something kind of cool. I know so many of you guys have been so enjoying reading bits and pieces of Iyanla Van Zandt. Marge says she's alone at home right now, and I light scented candles at night. It's so calming. Me too. I love the Bath and Body Works candles. Those are like the 3-wick candles. Oh my god, I'm burning one right now that's like French bread. It's just, if you are hungry, you do not burn this candle. Yeah, you just do not. Don't do it. You'll end up eating the candle probably. So yeah, it's so good, so good. So I want you guys, if you're interested, to check out on YouTube Iyanla's Fixins. Iyanla Van Zandt, who is a life coach and a phenomenal teacher. She is a lawyer and a minister, and there's a million different things. She's got so much going on for her. And she does a show every season on the OWN network called Iyanla Fix My Life, which is brilliant. It's just brilliant. And it doesn't matter what the subject is, you will learn something. You will learn something about yourself. It doesn't matter what's on. But she has got a great YouTube channel, and Iyanla's Fixins are little bits and pieces towards things like setting boundaries in relationships and, taking a look at who you are, where you want to go, and how to get there. And she's hilarious. She's funny. She's got brilliant words. As I say, she's the one that wrote Faith in the Valley. And in the meantime, and she's got tons of books out that are just, they're so powerful and just brilliant insight. And she's had a very interesting life for her life. I mean, she's, she lost her daughter. Her daughter passed away. She went through a really ugly divorce. She lost everything at one point. She was on welfare. She's really, she was stabbed by an ex-husband at one point when she was younger, and she had to get out of an abusive relationship. There was just her life is such a teaching tool, and she has done so much of that emotional work to get herself to where she is as this successful, driven, incredible woman. So I'm going to post a link to her YouTube channel on EntitySeeker, the Facebook page here, so you guys can check it out, and check out her series Iyanla's Fixins, because they're brilliant. If you like the book, then you're gonna dig the channel as well. And as I say, she's so much fun. She's so much fun to listen to. She's a blast. So it's a really, really good idea. Chris Brown says he's been social distancing himself from the fridge. Using food-scented candles wouldn't exactly flatten my curve. It's such a catch-22. You want the candle and then there's the food. I don't know. I can't fix that. I can't fix that. So anyway, you guys, thank you so much for an awesome morning of spiritual healthcare. We have to do our health affirmations before we do anything else. We have to be able to go into this day with the right energy, and to be in alignment so that we stay well and healthy. So everybody take a breath. It is natural for my body to be well. Even if I don't know what to do in order to get better, my body does. I have trillions of cells with individual consciousness, and they know how to achieve that individual balance. When this condition began, I didn't know what I know now. I don't need to understand the cause of this illness. I only have to gently, eventually release this illness. It doesn't matter how it got started, because it's reversing its course right now. And there's no hurry about any of this. My body knows what to do. Well-being is natural to me. My inner being is intricately aware of my physical body, and my cells are asking for what they need in order to thrive, and Source is answering those requests. I'm in very good hands. My only work is to relax and breathe, and I can do that easily. So everybody take a breath. Thank you guys so much this morning. This was awesome. This is always so much fun. Please keep sending in your questions. There has been so many amazing topics. I love to cover this stuff with you guys. It's so cool. Please keep inviting people to join us. Every day this just gets better and better and better. There's just so much well-being, so much flowing here, that I just love to be able to do this with you guys every single day. If you have missed a class, please hit up EntitySeeker on YouTube. So youtube.com/EntitySeeker, or EntitySeeker.ca is all of the classes for all the past classes and things like that. I update it every day, so you guys can check that out. As I say, I will post those links on Facebook and whatnot this afternoon, and I will see you guys tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. Mountain Time, right here on Facebook at Spiritual Healthcare. See you guys. Have an awesome day. Bye.